Ladies and gentlemen, greetings. I come back to speak to you about the current situation of COVID-19. I've had a lot of calls and reports, and I was asked to have another talk, especially about what is going on in Uganda at the moment. The main issue, it appears, is actually not the virus, but starvation and the mismanagement of resources, lack of transport for the sick, and lack of medical facilities, leading to death of pregnant mothers and their babies, plus other people who are seriously sick. The government promised to give food, and it has failed miserably. But this was deliberate, because the food is there. The government has received a lot of donations for food, both from within the country and from without. Not only that, the government has borrowed heaps of money in addition to the money that has been donated. The Ugandans, you must ask for accountability. Where has this money gone? What has this money done? We need answers to these questions, because people are starving. And as I say, you ask any Ugandan now, the problem is not the virus. The problem is the lack of food, starvation, and a bad government. There is no accountability for anything. Secondly, I would like to speak about the actual testing for coronavirus. There have been a number of false tests where somebody has been declared positive and actually negative, and probably many who have been declared negative might be positive. The most public one were the drivers from Kenya who had been declared positive, and they went back to Kenya and tested negative almost immediately. Yes, if you wait a number of weeks, you can get negative. But this was few days. So it's very highly unlikely that the test was correct in Uganda. And why? We have credible evidence to show that some of the tests are bogus, and the test kits are not enough and are misused, even though on paper a lot of money was spent to buy these kits. Not surprisingly, the person in charge of buying the kits is actually the person in charge of the Ministry of Health, the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Atwini. Now, how can you be the judge, the executioner, and the prison warder? So she decides where to buy from, she decides what to buy, and there is no accountability to anyone. Absolutely. Now, as you know, this young lady is one of the personal physicians of the president. So she's got a special bond to the president. And one wonders if the money is shared. Secondly, her assistant in the procurement process of the COVID testing kits and equipment is her sister, who is the wife of the Minister Frank Tumwebaze. How far can you go with the corruption? This is a rotten government with no accountability to anyone while people are dying and people are starving. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the medical personnel, the medical fraternity have done a lot in these very difficult times. And they were promised by the government to have some sort of compensation in terms of facilitation. Doctors, nurses, and medical personnel are not usually greedy. But this is a special occasion, and they should have been facilitated for the risks and for the long hours they're working. They've not been adequately facilitated as promised. Of course, Dictator Museveni is going to tell you there isn't enough money. Now, all of you know, or some of you may not know, but I'm telling you that just this week, it has been decided to give 317 members of parliament each 40 million Uganda shillings. And why? Because they supported the president and passed a motion of praise in parliament for the work is done, and also they were told to return the 20 million. So he gives you the one hand and takes double with the other. So he says, oh, I've told them to bring back the 20 million. That was wrong. And you clap. Overnight, he gives them 40 million. And the medical personnel have not been properly facilitated. The people are dying without medicine, and there is no food. And the texts are bogus. This is a rotten government. Ugandans, this is the time to wake up. For how long are you going to take this? This dictator has destroyed the country, and now destroying whatever is left, including your lives. Lastly, I'm going to speak about the plight of Ugandans overseas. Not everybody, but for some, in particular areas in the world. Many of you know about the Middle East, and some know about China. Some people have been stuck in China. Now, governments all over the world have done their bit to facilitate or to help their citizens, if need be, to come back to their own countries and repatriate them at least temporarily, or give them support where they are. The Ugandan government has done absolutely nothing. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to repatriating money and sending money from overseas, the Uganda government claps, saying, oh, Ugandans are big foreign exchange earner because they send money home. After denying and refusing to help any Ugandan outside, or even care to see if they could be helped in here somewhere. And in fact, those who managed to come back from the Middle East early on in February were totally mistreated at Entebbe. Many of you know this. They were mistreated, many were beaten up, many were taken into isolation. There was no testing, there were no masks. In fact, it was better for them to have stayed overseas. Now, this is your president that is mistreating. And for my brethren in the diaspora, many of you who have been saying, no, we don't want to cause trouble at home. Well, now you can see how much this president cares about you when you're in the diaspora. He just cares that you send money home, not you. Ladies and gentlemen, if it was consistent, I would not make so much noise. But sadly, it is not. There is a privileged class. As you know, Ben Kavia was facilitated and given royal treatment to come back from the US with his family. Is he more of a Ugandan than James Mukasa in Dubai? Or Dorothy Babidie in China? One wonders what is going on in Uganda. This man was given special treatment and his family to come back, while others are denied. And sometimes when they try to come, are actually mistreated.
Mr. President, let's speak about Ugandans who are stuck abroad in countries like Germany, United States, UK and other countries. They were on their way back because of the lockdown. They couldn't come into the country. They can no longer sustain themselves. What is government's evacuation plan looking like?
Stay where you are. We're not going to say let them come back. Rubbish, idiots.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to conclude by one, sending sympathies to those who are suffering now. My heart goes out to you. The pregnant mothers who have lost babies, that the lady from Kasangati who lost a baby a few days ago. I'm not sure that she's still alive, but I've asked for a progress report on this one. At this time of difficulty, we should all rethink our attitude to Uganda as a country, to Ugandans as a people, to the government, and to Dictator Museveni as a leader who has failed miserably. Not only failed, but has gone out of his way to mistreat Ugandans. For how long are you going to take this? For how long are you going to bow down? The writing is on the wall. Let us come together, and we can do it if we all come together, both locally and my brothers and sisters in diaspora, particularly in the diaspora, those who needed convincing. After you've listened to that clip from Dictator Museveni, I'm sure you might have a change of heart. The struggle continues. May the Lord bless you for God and my country.